You know, I could kind of I could make an album of some strange things, funny things, odd things that happened in Wichita Falls when I was supposed to be working for the Humble Lawn Refining Company. But it seemed to me like there sure was a lot of times when there was a little tomfoolery going on. We didn't have recess, we had recess at school. You're not supposed to have recess when you're in the office, but there's a lot of times the boss is gone and you kind of caught up on your work, and somebody comes in, and the first thing you know, there's something going on. We had a claiming right away man called Mountain Durrell. Mountain Durrell. And Mountain liked me because his office was right across the hall from my office. This is later on. I'd been there for 3 or 4 or 5 years by then, so I was I was standard equipment around there, and as a draftsman, I'm in the office every day from 7:30 to 4:30, and an hour off for lunch. Well, Mountain Durrell was a claimed right-of-way man, and he had his comings and goings. And Mountain was a typical salesman type. He was an excellent type personality to be a claim and right-of-way man. These guys out there went out and settled claims and bought right-of-way for the company. And this took I always wished I could be one of those because it sounded like a lot of fun. Because he always had stories to tell about some of these claims that he got. He got Mountain carried a brown envelope, and one envelope with a government stamp on it. Like if you were getting a government check, this is the way it would come. That brown envelope. You remember we used to get income tax back that way. They call it franked envelope, brown with a window in it. He carried one of those things. If he'd go out to buy a right of way, well, over in East Texas especially, there's a lot of black people living in the woods that, they didn't want to see white people because white people were trouble. Every time you saw a white man, it was a problem. So when Mountain's trying to settle a claim with these people, they wouldn't even admit to who they were or where. So he would pull out this brown envelope and pretend to read the man's name on it that he's looking for. Oh, he's out on the porch in a minute. Oh, yeah, he's right here. Well, then he'd put the envelope away and tell him what he really came for. He told me about it. He also had gone down to Chris's and bought some of these gold seals that you could buy for kids, like, they do good in Sunday school, and you give them a gold seal on their little paper, and they think that's what. Well, he used those. He said he had people wouldn't sign a document unless it had a gold seal on it. So he'd stick one of those Chris's gold seals on there to get him to sign something, and but he was a mess. And he had a tendency he liked to pull practical jokes on people. And I can't remember the practical jokes he pulled on me, but he'd pull one or two on me, So I decided to get back at Mountain. And the best one I ever pulled on Mountain was the hat trick. And I don't know who told me how to do this or who suggested it, but it was a pretty good trick. Mountain wore a white Stetson hat. You almost had to if you were claiming right-of-way, man, out on the road. In Texas, you had to have some kind of a Stetson hat, and he had a white one. And he left that on a hat rack in his office when he was in town, of course. And since he's right across the hall, he'd get up and leave his office to go to the restroom or something. Well, I had cut some strips of stationery paper about, just about 3/4 of an inch wide, and the width of the paper, 8.5 inches wide. And I'd take 2 or 3 over there of those, and I'd go over there and put them inside the leather band in his hat. They're out of sight. Just 2 or 3 pieces of stationery paper, and that's it. And the next time he was in town, I'd put 2 or 3 more. And the next time he was in, I'd put 2 or 3 more, and 2 or 3 more, and 2 or 3 more. And this went on for 3 or 4 months. You know, a good joke can take a long time. And pretty soon I had a pretty good wad of paper in his hat. And I guess every time you put his hat on, he'd stretch it a little bit, not enough to tell. Well, people around the office, they began, I had to tell them. So we went to a coffee break one morning, and we'd like to go down to Piccadilly, which was a block and a half away from the office. And Mountain was there, and this was the day I'm going to take the paper out. Well, with a little help from my Confederates, we distracted him. He wore his hat down there and hung it up on a hat rack right close by. And they distracted him somehow, and I reached up and took the paper out of his hat band. And nobody said anything. We got ready to go. Stood up, at the Piccadilly you had to pay when you left, and went out the door. Well, he picked up his check, and of course we always played some kind of games, who plays a check or something, and I don't remember who paid the check that day because that was not important. The important thing was I took the wadding of paper out of his hat. And when he put that hat, it came down, it came down over his ears. And he jerked that hat off, looked at it, and there's his initials in the leather band. And he's going, and all of a sudden, you can see, it is his hat. He thought at first it couldn't be his hat. He tried again, down over his ear. And everybody's really good by pretending they don't notice anything. And everybody's dying to laugh, and they got to give up and say that they didn't. What's the matter, Matt? My hat, there's something wrong. And then it's dawned, maybe it's not his hat. Maybe it's his head. Something happened to his head. Because nothing could happen to his hat. It's just hanging there. It must be his head. His head's shrinking. All this is going through his mind. And Mountain, who is so animated anyway, and with a salesman type personality, he was loud. He was loud, getting attention all over the Piccadilly. My head. Well, by this time I'm scared to tell him. I can't tell Mountain that I messed up his hat. He's busy thinking he's got to go see a doctor about his head shrinking. How can this be? He knew it wasn't his hat because his hat was just hanging there. What could happen, Good old Mountain Durrell. He had a friend down in the law department, down at the other end of the hall, and I swear I can't think of that guy's name now, but he was a typical company lawyer, kind of puffed up on himself, and he liked to go. We went through a period of time there when we'd all go over and play snooker at a pool hall down on Scott Street, second floor down there. You could play snooker. This is not, folks, if you don't know, snooker is not as a typical pool game. It's a different table, different balls, different rules, and it's supposed to be the gentleman's game. Well, Mountain would like to go with a lawyer because the lawyer thought he was smarter than anybody, and being smarter than anybody, he was probably better at anything he did than anybody. And Mountain would clean his plow down at the snooker table because Mountain would game him out of it, thumping his cue on the floor or whistling or something when it was supposed to be a concentration. It's a whole lot like not being quiet when you're playing golf on a putting green, Ooh, that's bad. Anyway, he'd win his bets all the time from the lawyer. I'll think of his name in a minute, but anyway. About this time, and another thing that was going on was that we were playing a lot of tennis, and myself and another engineer, Dan Bader, were pretty well acknowledged the best tennis players in the office, from petroleum engineer, civil engineer, to all of us. Dan and I beat everybody, and Dan could beat me. And he and I won the doubles championship, and he won the singles championship, and I was number two. So we were pretty good tennis players, I guess, at the time, during considering the competition. Anyway, well, my across the table buddy that had moved into Wichita Falls, Jimmy Red, had decided he was going to play tennis. Jimmy was he was bad about thinking anything I did he could do, or maybe better. And he and the lawyer began to play tennis together. They were both beginners, and they decided that they were getting pretty good. You know, they had the sweat bands that these real tennis players wear, these cloth sweat bands on their wrist, and they had all kinds of tennis stuff. And they would come in the office and talk about how good they were the day before on the tennis courts. Well, they were in there building them each other up one day when Manton came into the office, and he listened a little bit of that. He sensed that there was a lot of hot air, and he said, "I tell you what, you fellas, I'm sick and tired of hearing y'all talk tennis here, tennis that, and you can make the ball do this, and you can make the ball do that." He said, "I tell you what, Jim Fox and I are going to bet you we can win a tennis match playing you guys, and the loser buys the winners a fine steak dinner." Oh, this steak dinner. Boy, you didn't have steak dinners. That's expense account type dinners. You know, we were hamburger people. You know, a steak dinner. And I'm saying, well, hold it. Wait a minute, Manton. Are you a tennis? He said, "I never played a game in my life. Don't know which end of the club to hold." I said, "You don't use a club, use a racket." Well, so what? Whatever. And these guys were so puffed up that they said, "Yeah, all right, it's a bet. When are we going to play it?" And I said, well, wait a minute. I'm getting sucked there on something. And, they said, no, you can't back out of it. Now, Man's already said y'all going to beat us. So they set it up here for 2 or 3 weeks in advance. Because Manton says he's going to have time practice, you know. He never played tennis before. So they took turns shaking hands, and that was when Manton made his famous remark. They said, "Manton, tell the truth now. Have you ever played tennis?" He said, "Well, to be honest with you guys, I used to travel and teach the game." Well, he was so windy, and he's so full of bull, they didn't know whether to believe him or not. Fact is, he had never been on a tennis court in his life. And he told me, they said, "No, I never played tennis." I said, "Manton, I ain't got this to cost me. I ain't got money to go around buying steak dinners for people." He said, "Don't worry about it, Fox. Don't worry about it. I can handle them. They're both of them, they're windy. I can handle them." Well, I said, "Well, we're going to have to get out and practice." And he said, yeah, later. Well, the time went by, and he would never, ever practice. I never could get him to practice. Day of the game, we still had never been on the tennis court together. Oh, man. We're going to have to be there at 5:30 at the tennis court, and we're going to play off this match. Well, I had to go home and get dressed. Manton didn't. He showed up there in street clothes and street shoes and clothes he'd worn to work that day. And he just took his shirt off, playing his, his regular dress pants and low quarters. And I had to bring him a tennis racket. And he said, when I got there, I said, "Dadgum, Manton." He said, "Don't worry about it, Fox. I've been watching them." He said, "Red is the easy one. Hit them all to red, because when he misses, the lawyer gets mad at him." Oh, that was his game. He had figured out how to game them out of the match. Well, we flipped to see who served first in this set of doubles, and of course it was Matt Durrell won the first serve. He didn't know how to hit the ball over the net and make it hit in the right court. We lost the first game. We won the next 5 games. By the third game, that our opponents weren't speaking to each other. Manton had been on their case with talk. That's all he had was talk, because I was playing both sides of the court, and because he didn't know how to hit the ball, but he was talking to them all the time. And by the third game, they couldn't do anything. That was the last game. The first game was the only one we lost, and we beat 5 straight and took the match. But I'm sorry to tell you, we never got the stakes. I don't remember now how they crawdadded out of it. That's what we say in Texas. They backed out of it. They crawdadded. You know, a crawdad goes backward. They crawdadded out of the deal. They never bought our stakes. And that was just one of my deals with Matt Durrell. He's gone now, but he was a good friend and a source of a lot of fun.